On this week's mailbag episode, the San Diego Padres and Los Angeles Dodgers NLDS rivalry matchup has been just as crazy as advertised, with crazy star performances from Tatis and Merrill and Manny and Darvish to even Shohei Ohtani of the other side. And breaking news, most shocking part, the Dodger fans are still chumps. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, October 7th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always, the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, and at LO_Padres. If you're curious about my other baseball-related work, go check out Just Baseball, a fantastic, lovely, glorious website, and also my other podcast over there, Baseball versus the World, about general baseball topics and whatnot, if you get sick of my Padres bias or whatever have you. Today's episode, guys, wow, mailbag episode. We're going to be answering your questions and everything. And if you're wondering about, first of all, the volume, the quality, my apologies, okay? I am actually in Virginia right now, and for those who don't know, I'm from New Jersey. I'm in Virginia celebrating, like, my sister's birthday, so, like, we're down here, and it's a stacked, like, full house, so we don't really have a room for me, and I'm trying to make sure that I'm a little bit quiet because people are sleeping right now, but so apologies for that, but you guys know I had to get you guys an episode because I got like a 6-hour drive tomorrow, so I didn't want to give it too late. But yeah, we're going to be going through both of these games, starting with last night's game, the biggest one and most ridiculous one in a lot of ways, and then Saturday's game, which was like a real game in a lot of ways. Like that was like a real like back and forth, just like great game. And then we're going to be going into the mailbag a little bit, answering some of your guys' questions. No time to waste, so let's do it. The Padres beating the Dodgers on Sunday by a final score of 10-2. And frankly, this is one of those games where it's, first of all, it's great. The series is tied at one apiece. But it's one of those games where the plays and individual accomplishments almost pale in comparison to what the real storyline of this game is. For those who didn't watch, there was a lot of bad stuff that happened here. You had a lot of swag from the Padres, and we're gonna dive into it in a second. But then, of course, you had a bunch of fan incidents with the Dodgers fan base, and I know that there's a lot of people, and potentially even some Dodgers fans that are tuning in, and they might leave me some comments or whatever. I'm not here to necessarily bash all Dodger fans, in general, I should say, right? And I think that there's a lot of layers to this, but I will say that it was some major loser energy from the Los Angeles Dodgers last night, and I think that it was really reprehensible in a lot of ways. I just want to start off by saying, like, it got a little bit dangerous, right? And it all starts because of one sir, the one who for some reason is the greatest irritant of every other team in the league, apparently, from the Nationals to the Dodgers to the some other team I'm probably forgetting. What, Pirates? Was Pirates one of them? I forgot. Jurickson Profar. Jurickson Profar, again, people who didn't notice last night, makes a great, unbelievable catch. And it's not that I hadn't seen a catch like this before, but Jurickson Profar in left field, jumping into the stands practically, getting the ball out of the Dodger fans' grass right before the fans are able to get it. And would have been their prerogative, by the way, there was any sort of interference. He jumps up, he grabs the ball, and then he looks at the fans and he starts doing like a backwards, like hopscotch type hop backwards, just like looking at them and staring at them. And then they're all sort of like, you can see not the fans right there, but like some of the fans like a little bit more behind them are cheering. And the graphic on the broadcast, from at least what I saw, literally says a home run from Mookie Betts. And I think he was literally just like wanting to pretend and like waiting for them to like all realize he caught that. And by the way, multiple amazing defensive plays. Fernando Tatis Jr. makes a great defensive play in this game. Jackson Merrill makes a great defensive play in this game. I wish that was kind of all that happened, but seriously, go watch the replay of that. I tweeted about it. It belongs in the Louvre. It was insane to watch Profar do that, and he is just the ultimate swag master of this team in a lot of ways. Next to Tatis, and you've got him, you've got Manny. But of course, that was not the end of it. And it's so funny that this game was a really great example, by the way, one of the things that I will bash the Dodgers fans for is the common refrain, the it's not a rivalry thing. And that thing has always annoyed me because I'm a huge fervent believer in a nascent rivalry is still a rivalry, right? Like if we're only doing rivalries and the definition of them and we're only defining them as, oh, it's got to be, you got to have 80 years of history. Everyone's got to have the World Series together. No, that's boring. You know what I mean? Because bottom line is there's so many things that are established in our world in general. So it's a little bit dumb to act like, in when you know more about how the world works, that like it has to be something that has like years and years of history to it. It's like, actually, like, let's kind of live in the now a little bit. And what happened in this game, first of all, I forgot to say, like, the Padres strike first. Again, this is like, it's so funny, like, what was most wild about this game. But Fernando Tatis Jr., top of the first inning, first at bat goes deep. Guy's hitting like 647 in the postseason. In fact, he has 14 home runs in 36 career games at Dodger Stadium, which is a 63 homer pace, by the way, across the full season if you play in Dodger Stadium. So shout out to our guy Tatis. And then you have David Peralta hit a 2-run shot in the top of the second inning. Love that. I love the synchronicity of it all, because for those who don't remember, like, David Peralta, when he filled in for Tatis, we were a little bit worried. The freight train and all that was his magic out, from his time with the D-backs when he was crushing the Padres. And he hasn't been. He's been an amazing bench bat, just like Donovan Solano, right? So seeing him come up there was huge. Gavin Lux gets a sacrifice fly. Jackson Merrill, this is when it gets crazy. Top of the sixth inning. So Jack Flaherty, who, again, more of like this poetic thing to it, was one of the top trade targets at the deadline, and someone who I was vocally like really wanting to get. Now, I did re-edit some of my comments when that came out, because once it was clear that the Padres were like, we know, or at least they knew at the time, especially because they ended up coming back, that they would get both Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove back. It makes sense that they were like, okay, let's not give up the prospect haul there. Let's actually get like a really razor sharp bullpen that's really been helping them and was nails in last night's game, especially too. But what ends up happening is Jack Flaherty, he has like an okay game. I don't think he was like unstoppable or anything. He's been a little bit middling for the Dodgers overall. Not bad. I would definitely not say bad, but overall, 3.58 ERA with the Dodgers compared to 2.95 beforehand. A little bit of a down rate in his strikeouts, but for the most part, still a really good, solid pitcher. And he gets pretty kind of hit up by this Padres lineup, like many teams. He ends up giving up 4 earned runs. He gives up 1 walk, 2 Ks. So nothing amazing for him. But what ends up happening in this game is that at some point in the top of the 6th inning, and it's hard to like, because I actually have like a friend who was like, I went to like go eat, and then all of a sudden everything kicked off. But Jack Flaherty hits Fernando Tatis Jr. in the thigh. And the Padres, Jurickson Profar and Manny Machado, Profar in deck, Machado in the hole, are very appropriately incensed by this. They're like, what the heck? Because this guy, by the way, at this time, he didn't just hit the home run. He had been doing a whole lot of other stuff, right? He had I think he ripped the double after that first plate appearance, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he ripped the double. Like, it just came off like, of course you did. So the Padres, understandably, are like, are you doing that thing that basically we've been seeing, if you follow baseball, how unbelievably soft pitchers are? I don't think that our guy Jack Flaherty did this intentionally. I don't. However, my take on this is no, I don't think it was intentional, but pitchers, it's like, why are you being the one that's upset that Manny and Profar are upset? Instead, I would take the approach of, yo, relax, like, I don't mean it. But instead, he's getting super aggressive and yelling back at them, right? And then that's where everything just dove. You know what I mean? And we're going to talk about that even more, dive deeper into it, give my full thoughts, and maybe do a little bit of Dodger fan roasting, because that is what they deserve in just one second, guys. But first, I have to talk to you guys about one of our sponsors today, and that is our good friends over at Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more just isn't in the cards. See what I did there? I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. And thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. That's right, guys. That's right. They're revolutionizing the repack game with plenty of transparency as well. It's accurate, fast, Full grade rationale provided, an explanation of how your card was scored, whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying. Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out, man. Like, seriously, go check it out. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? And right now you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code LockedOnMLB for for 10% off your first purchase. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here thriving and vibing into segment number 2. My apologies to everybody if it's a little bit low, not the best quality of my episode ever. I am again in Virginia, hanging out with my sister for her birthday. Everybody, listen to the comments or DM me saying your happy birthday wishes, and I'll send them to her as well. Her name's Vanessa. Anyway, so what ends up happening is Jurickson Profar gets on base, because of course he does, as the irritant often does, right? He's going to be in your face. But in that 6th inning, right, Profar hits a single after Tatis gets hit. What have we seen about this Padres team all year long is these guys ride for each other. Like, they really, really do. Every time something bad happens, every time something weird happens, it looks like a player's been slighted, especially someone like Profar and certainly someone like Tatis. They ride for each other. What ends up happening is Manny Machado strikes out. Good pitch by Jack Flaherty. And then Jack Flaherty, after he says that, you can hear on the broadcast him saying, like, sit the F down, mother effer, basically. And Machado's then barking back at him, and then it continues on for the rest of the game. First of all, I find it friggin' hilarious that he's saying to sit down to this guy when it's not like he's had that incredible of a start. Don't get me wrong, I love this stuff. It's good for the sport when you have moments like this. But it's like, you're telling him to sit down, and then Dave Roberts immediately pulls him after that because he knows you're not ready to face a 21-year-old. And then what does that 21-year-old do? He hits a single to drive in another one, making it 4-1. And it continued on. And here's my thing. I really do think that pitchers are soft. And you saw that Machado and him were barking, by the way, in the next inning after that. I genuinely believe this. It's insane. It's, like, actually insane that, like, people, like, these pitchers think that they're so tough to be talking so much smack away when they're on the mound and all their teammates are around. It's always driven me insane. It's like me talking smack to someone who's, 6 blocks away from where I am right now. And then I'm just staying where I am, and I have like 8 people and my whole family's here. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just lame. But it doesn't end there. Of course it doesn't, man. Of course it doesn't. And again, I think it's crazy for you to be upset at Machado and Profar for being upset that they're like, hey, you just happened to hit Tatis, the one guy that the Dodgers haven't been able to get out. Frankly, no one has been able to get out, but especially the Dodgers, like, okay. And then what ends up happening is that Jurickson Profar is, at one point, there is a ball thrown at him in left field. There's also, from what I heard, potentially some stuff was thrown at Tatis as well in the coming innings. Game gets halted for a bunch. There's no place for this, all right? And I'm not saying that this is exclusively a Dodgers fan thing. I think that would be unbelievably biased and, frankly, just a little bit tribalistic and ridiculous. This is not exclusively a Dodgers thing. Frankly, there was probably a time in the past at some point that Padres fans did this. I'm just saying those are what the odds are, right? And the last time I remember it being, like, on this level, though, that's the difference here, was like the Rangers Blue Jays playoff series from a while back. Remember the Rangers? They were all annoyed because Bautista did the bat flip. If you guys remember this, Jose Bautista bat flip, and then all those players that were mad, including Brunette Odor, former Padre, then hit a home run in like his, I forgot, Mexican League maybe, in the summer, and then had his own absurd bat flip celebration. So I'm like, again, that's what I love about baseball players. They're exceptionally soft and hypocritical like no other. But you have that situation go down. And again, like I said, can the Padres fan base be obnoxious? Of course. And I know that the Jeff Passan tweet from the other day where he was like, if you don't want to be treated like the little brother, don't act like one, that has some merit to it. Although I think that when he made that tweet, for people who aren't on Twitter, he was responding to someone complaining that Jeff Passan only tweeted out the Shohei Ohtani home run and not the Manny Machado home run from the from the Saturday game. So I disagree with how he used it, but I get what he's saying. But I think, and also I get that Jeff is doing that because it's engagement. You want the engagement. And guess what? Shohei Ohtani is going to get more clicks than basically any player in the sport and almost of like all athletes playing in North American sports, right? Like that's just what the reality is. So I get that. My issue though is this, And this has been my issue with Dodgers fans for the longest time. They act like they run the game. So you guys keep saying little brother, which, yeah, all time, of course that's true. But they put themselves on this pedestal as if everyone hasn't kicked your butt in the postseason a bajillion times over, and the only time it didn't really happen was when it happened to be a shortened season. Mookie Betts is like 2 for his last 45 in the postseason. Coincidentally, when he joins the Dodgers. And then they just rehire, Dave Roberts again. But it's just, this always happens with this team. So I've just, the unearned bravado by the Dodgers fan base is what gets me. And I thought that this was incredibly lame. I thought it was awful. And I think that anytime you have to tell your fans or announce on a call to stop throwing nonsense on the field, it's ridiculous. Tatis was chirping back because he's very good at that. The Dodger fans who love to, poke at the PEDs thing as if, didn't Julio Urias, and then he has some other stuff off the field too. So I always hate when teams act like their team is pure. It always gets me so mad. I'm like, relax. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. But yeah, just a really, really bad showing by the Dodgers fan base, and they should be rightfully criticized for it. I've seen a lot of people criticize it. Good for them. I've seen some Dodgers fans criticize it. I've seen Jeff Snyder and Vincent Sampere of Locked On Dodgers rightfully criticize it. It's bad and it's stupid. I will say that we don't necessarily know everything, right? I've gotten multiple texts from people who are like involved in this, and one person said that Merrill said what happened wasn't his place to speak about. That's a little weird, and it might be a little bit of a sign of, was there some even worse things said to Profar? It wouldn't shock me. Again, it's not exclusive to the Dodgers fan base. This is mostly just how sports work, and especially, bigger market teams, you're just going to have jerks. That's what happens. But then it's also true that, was Profar being more of an irritant? You know what I mean? So I'm not going to say that, Profar was this innocent angel in all this, but it is absurd to be throwing stuff on the field and acting that way. And then, I tweeted out, was this going to affect Darvish, who had been amazing? We haven't even talked about him yet, by the way. Darvish in this game, sorry for getting so caught up with all the drama, but Darvish in this game, 7 innings, 1 earned run on 3 hits, 2 walks, 3 Ks. Darvish has been outstanding. And this guy, we talked about this last week. We talked about this, that one of the secret weapons for the Padres this series is that for some reason, and we talked about that there's a piece by Andy McCullough in The Athletic talking basically a player profile without being able to talk to the player, that Darvish really suffered losing the World Series for the Dodgers back when he was with them. And frankly, I have beef with the Dodgers fan base that they love hating on Darvish because of this, as if you don't have 27 other players who have blown the postseason for you, including your first ballot Hall of Famer, who became, if I was a postseason pitcher in Major League Baseball, one of the great splits when it comes to playoff stuff is Clayton Kershaw. So that's insane that they just use him as a scapegoat, and you don't accept the fact that your whole team can get beat by the average Joes from dodgeball in the postseason. So I hate that. But Darvish, this man kills them, not including the playoffs. Darvish has the 6th lowest ERA against the Dodgers among all pitchers since integration who have had at least 15 starts against them. This man is on a mission to be I hated that. I hated the way I was blamed for it. I don't like that I was embarrassed like that, because he was absolutely and totally embarrassed with them. And frankly, might have thrown off his confidence because he was bad that first year with the Cubs in the offseason. Just to completely own them. And if we get to a game 5, it's possible you could see him, and I'd love that, because for some reason, Shohei going 0 for 4, for example, with 2 Ks, this guy just has them, man. He has them for some reason, and it's so funny because there are better pitchers the Padres have. I think Dylan Cease is a better pitcher. I think Michael King is a better pitcher. Joe Musgrove, by the way, Tommy John surgery. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's episode. I think that they're better pitchers probably at this point in their careers than Darvish, but he kills them. He's a Dodgers killer, so we love that very much. But to get back to that game stuff, then what ends up happening, the Padres go on an offensive bonanza, and you see Manny Machado in the dugout. He brings them together after the whole kerfuffle and whatnot. Darvish doesn't end up, the icing incident, I guess, if you want to call it that, doesn't work. He still gets the 3 outs, even though he had to pause. We had to pause the game and whatnot. But hey, I actually was a little bit confident he would be okay, just because Darvish is just such a a lunatic with his work ethic and is so focused and so smart, you know what I mean, that I just felt like he'd handle it, but he does. And you see Manny Machado rallies the troops in the dugouts. They showed on the broadcast, and what ends up happening is, I told you, it's only 4-1 at this point. Then we get absolute madness. Jackson Merrill hitting a home run after Manny Machado gets a single. Then Xander Bogaerts, who's been really for us for a while, right? He hits a home run, and it looks like he practically, pimped it. Then also later on in the top of the ninth, a home run from Kyle Higashioka, and then a home run from Fernando Tatis Jr. He hit 2 in this game, just silencing the crowd. You cannot be more happy about that. You just can't. You can't. And it was amazing. And again, Dodger fans are lame. We've talked about this for a long time. I'm going to talk about this more on tomorrow's podcast, because it's just, there is no team with more unearned bravado in all of sports than the Los Angeles Dodgers in terms of like this generation, right? Dallas Cowboys are close. Don't get me wrong. But Dallas Cowboys, I actually think their fan base is kind of like, yeah, we're suffering at this point. You know what I mean? I feel like the Dallas Cowboys aren't like that. But the Dodgers, they act like they run the game. They act like everything goes through them. And I'm like, if you mean go through them like everyone literally gets past you, yes. Otherwise, I just don't see it. Just don't see it. But yeah, guys, we've been talking for a while already. We're going to quickly talk about just some of the like quick highlights, because yesterday's game was so nuts, from Saturday's game, which was a loss. So we don't want to talk about that as much. And we will also answer some of your mailbag questions. And I know you guys are going to want that. And we'll keep vibing. You know what I mean? It's just you and me. We're all having fun here, I hope. But before we get into that, guys, I just need to take a second to talk to you about Booking.com. You know about Booking.com, guys. It is one of the greatest things ever invented. And here's the thing. This episode, Booking.com, Booking.yeah, the rights that can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals like the Dodgers. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, so much more on the website. It's really good. It'll give you a wide variety of places to go. It gives you all the sort of things that from, things to help if you have kids or anything like that, finding the best place that works for you, no matter the city, family-friendly resorts, all that sort of stuff. Check it out when you download the Booking.com app. Booking.com, Booking.yeah. And next up, we got to talk a little bit about FanDuel. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we love FanDuel. You know why? Because FanDuel, man, they're always here for you, man. And if you're a football fan, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Some crazy results from Sunday's games. Just great sports weekend, frankly. America's #1 sports book, of course, is FanDuel. For you to do that, when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And check this out. You'll get started with $200, 200, not 2.00, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. So go check that out, guys. That's FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And just like that, everybody, we are back in the final segment, thriving and vibing. It's going to be a little bit of a long one, right? We're going to do some mailbag stuff. But first, got to talk about Saturday's game really quickly. Not going to talk too much about it. And again, send me actually more questions, especially because we're going to have a little bit of a day off, unfortunately. Or are we? Yeah, we're having a day off. We're having a day off. We're back in action on Tuesday in Petco Park. So feel free to send me questions and comments below. I'll take a look at the rest of them, because again, it's just been really busy for me. Sorry, I didn't have enough time to go through all of it. So some of your comments from last week might make the show too, and all of the ones under this video certainly will. So DM me. You guys know what to do. Let us begin though. Saturday's game, the Padres end up losing 7-5, and in fairness, this game was just good old fashioned just good quality baseball. Sunday was rivalry and showing these teams clearly hate each other. And again, that's why it's so funny when the Dodgers fans say it's not a rivalry. And I'm like, yes, it is. Don't look at me and say that the games between y'all and the Giants are just as intense and bitter as the ones between y'all and the Padres. I'm not talking about like resumes. We're just talking about the intensity. And go ask Jeff Snyder of Locked On Dodgers. He'll tell you the same thing. He's like, yeah. He's like, it feels that way. Like, yeah, we own the overall thing, but like, in general, he's like, yeah, the past 5 years since I've been hosting the show, it's been real. And this game, I will say, Dylan Cease was very disappointing. 3 1/3, giving up 5 earned runs on 6 hits, 2 walks, 5 Ks. I'm not as upset about him not necessarily having like a dynamite start. For me, he gives up a home run to Shohei Ohtani in this one. After the Padres had already scored, they got a sacrifice ground out from Jurickson Profar, and then Manny Machado hit a huge home run to center field, allowing Tatis to score, making it 3-0. And for you to then come in the bottom of the second inning and give it right back with Shohei, it was eerily similar. Go look up Shohei Ohtani home run. White Sox, I think is what'll pull it up. It was a Sunday night baseball game, and you had all the best equipment, and they captured it. And it was this same sort of like way too straight, way too direct pitch from Cease that went to the top left of the strike zone from Shohei's perspective, and he just yeeted that thing into right field. Basically makes the same mistake. Not gonna lie, I have no beef with Shohei, none. He's the coolest Dodger. He's one of the coolest athletes. Like, he's cool. It's hard to hate him. Although I hate that like the Dodgers are the only ones that could get him. That sucks. But and he hits it and he has like a mean bat flip thing or whatever. And I'm like, that's fine. I have no beef with that. Now I will say our guys do that and all of a sudden they have a problem. You know what I'm saying? Our guys showboat and whatnot. All of a sudden the Dodgers fans and the Dodgers team has a problem with that. Okay. Okay. Sure. But that happens there. Sandy Bogarts rips a double later to give them the lead. But then, bottom of the fourth inning, things just kind of fall apart. Adrian Monahan, a player that I've been really concerned about for a while when it comes to high leverage, he isn't very good. Jeremiah Estrada gives up a run after being brought in because Monahan couldn't do anything. And the rest of the game is fine, but that was basically kind of it. They were unable to get anything. Manny Machado striking out to end the game, unfortunately, with runners on first and second. Lord knows what the Dodgers fans were saying to him after that. My takeaway from that was Cease, really worried about him, especially against this type of lineup that seems to be able to key in on him, and he just can't pitch to Shohei. Granted, not many can, but he needs to be a little bit better. He's got to have much better control and cannot leave a game that quickly. I love the Pods bullpen, but you got to give us some more, man. But and then also the Pods bullpen with Monahan. I've been saying this for months. I still like him. He's still a good pitcher, but he does worry me in high leverage situations. But yeah, that's basically it for those two games, guys. Just what a nutty series. Like, what a absolutely nutty series. And again, I want to be careful when it comes to the Profar thing. I mentioned this in the last segment already, but like, I do want to be careful and not assume too much. I don't want to assume Jackson Merrill's whole, like, that weird, ominous quote about it's not my place. I don't want to assume that necessarily anything awful happened there. But I also don't want to assume that Profar was totally innocent. Some person was telling me, I forgot if this was on Twitter and whatnot, but like some person was saying like, oh, I was there, and like he was like throwing and jawing at the fans the whole time, so they just threw the ball back towards him. Now there is a difference. If a player is taunting, you just can't throw stuff on the field. Like, you got to be really careful with that, but I don't think it was just that. So maybe we'll learn more about it by the time this episode comes out, but alas, I digress. In terms of some of your questions that you guys asked, though, Zachary Shelton says, is it just me, or did you not like the way that Ohtani threw the bat after he hit the 3-run homer? It felt kind of like he was throwing it in the face of the Padres and about how great he is. No, you can't do this, guys. We can't say how much we love what Profar did and then turn around and hate what Shohei did. I loved it. I think it's always great for the sport. And again, this is the only sport with the softest people alive, where if you do this and you did it a certain way. Remember when Profar went back and maybe for a second talked some smack to the Nationals because they had walked a rise in order to face him, and they threw a hissy fit over it? Like, what are we doing? Absolutely sporadic and ridiculous. The worst catcher in baseball is trying to talk to him. Who are you? You know what I mean? I hate that. So no, I did not mind it whatsoever. Was it frustrating? Yes, on a game level, of course it was. But in terms of like, wow, it felt like he was spitting in their face. No, everybody grow up. Enough. You saw what they did last night. You cannot be on the Padres side, but then take the side of, wow, but Shohei, like, that was wrong. Totally disagree with that. Zachary Shelton also asked another question, though. Will you be mentioning in your recap of the game or games how much coverage Ohtani got in terms of camera looks? I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. How many times that cuts him on camera, even when he was sitting in the dugout? Well, for my friend, welcome to how the world works and how engagement works. And Shohei Ohtani is a superstar, and they want to show him as much as possible, especially for a lot of, I imagine, international viewers. They want to see him a lot. And I don't think that they cut to him too much. And again, I brought up the Jeff Passan thing where he's like only tweeting out that home run, but then not Manny Machado, who the very next the very previous inning had an insane home run of his own. So like, I didn't like that. I really, really didn't. And I think that it was just it's just super hypocritical and whatnot. And I think that, yeah, they get a lot of coverage, but I don't think it was awful. I will tell you what was awful. It's not the camera thing. This is not, I don't want to be on like some Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce soapbox, right? Where everybody complains about that. It was fine. What I didn't like was Joe Davis, who I think is excellent, by the way. I think he does an excellent, excellent job. And maybe I bet he's the type of person that if you told him this, he might be like, oh, yeah, I get what you're saying. This idea that they're trying to push, whether it be from Dodgers fans or Joe Davis and the Major League Baseball apparatus and media, whatnot, that the Dodgers are underdogs. I'm really tired of hearing this. Guess what? Neither of these teams are underdogs. Both of these teams are, in my opinion, two of the best teams in the National League and possibly two of the best teams in all of baseball, including all the American League teams. Maybe except the Yankees. I don't consider either of them underdogs. Are the Dodgers technically not favored? Yeah, sure. But I don't think that makes you an underdog. I just think it means that you're not favored, right? But if I would guess, like if I put odds heading into the series, I'd probably say it was like 55-45 in favor of the Padres, which to me does not, an underdog is like the Tigers, the Royals, where it's like they don't have a really deep lineup and they just got hot at the right time. Both of these teams have spent a lot of money. Dodgers obviously infinitely more so, but the Padres have a lot of money spent too. They both got a lot of stars. I do not view that, and it's ridiculous to claim that the Dodgers are an underdog. It just doesn't make any sense. They're still a really good team that has a lot of good offensive players on it, some quality starting pitchers, really solid bullpen, and then they're also the Dodgers, and they know how to get the best out of some minor role players like a Michael Kopech, for example. So I just like I hate that narrative. So I disagree with you on necessarily the Dodgers getting too much or Shohei getting too much screen time, but that the whole underdog thing is really driving me nuts. No, you're not. Stop it. Stop it. When did they become the underdog? They're just chokers. That's the difference. So I've had enough of all that. But moving on to another question from Rama Murdy. He says, question from Monday's show. With Ha-Seong Kim signing with Scott Boras, do you expect him to re-sign with the Padres? If not, what teams do you think he signs with? I think maybe the Giants, since he's friends with Jung Ho Lee. He's also, and also with the injury to Joe Musgrove, should the Padres look at re-signing Cease and King after the 2025 situation? He has another question that we'll get to. I don't expect him to re-sign with the Pods. And the reason I don't expect him to re-sign with the Padres is because, number one, I wouldn't love it. I just don't think utility players like this are someone you want to give an extension for multiple years to, especially when you already have so many contracts on your team. And I think the other thing is that they have a bunch of shortstops already. You've got Xander Bogaerts. Jake Cronenworth, in my opinion, he can be moved right to second base and give you great defensive value. Some of his best years were him at second base. And then you could stick a Rise at first or, hopefully get a different first baseman who could actually play some defense at first base. And then you have Bogaerts. And then not to mention one of the Padres' top prospects, right? Leo DeVries, he's a shortstop. So, like, you don't want to have this clog when you literally might have another gem upcoming. Remember Merrill, right? Like, we don't want to go down that route. And by the way, Merrill homering, just, that kid's, guys, like, Jackson Merrill is on he's on something, let me tell you. So no, I do not think that they re-sign him. I think that him bringing in Scott Boras is a big sign that like he's ready to potentially get paid. And yeah, I could see the Giants. The Giants have needed a player like Ha-Seong Kim for a while, and there's no beef. Clearly, you know what I mean. You remember Manny last week saying "I love you" in Korean and all that after they clinched. Nah, man, no beef with him whatsoever. And he's a good player, and I'm curious to see where he goes in the offseason. But it's just unfortunate how it ended for him. Would have loved him on this playoff roster for sure. But no, I don't think that they should necessarily sign him. And then with the Musgrove thing, yes, I do. I think that you could see a King or Cease extension. Wouldn't be shocked if our old buddy returned to Blake Snell. Don't know what the Giants are doing over there. I don't know why they didn't trade him at the deadline when he has an opt-out. But he's probably going to opt out, and he's probably going to get more of a multi-year deal because teams are going to be like, okay, he did it again. You just got to use him the right way. Don't expect him to be amazing immediately. But I do think that those are absolutely options, especially with the Musgrove injury, because he's going to be out until 26. So that stinks. And then also, assuming the Padres win game number 2 tonight and King pitches game number 3 and they won, who do you pitch in game number 4? It's a great question. Honestly, I could see a bullpen game. I could. right? I could see in a situation where they maybe say, let's do Perez and whatnot. But if they did, right? So if they won game number 3 and you had to go game 4, it's tough, man, because man, would it be great to have Musgrove, right? Especially if you're in Petco. I don't know, man. I don't know. This is a tough question. I think you could see even a bullpen game. I think you could see it, especially if they have they have the day off today while you guys are listening to this. So I could see that be a situation, but I think they're going to see, because Darvish only went 82 pitches, by the way. They didn't keep him in the full time, which I thought was interesting. So maybe they're thinking, let's save him. He can recover somewhat fast. We'll see. Again, that is going to be the biggest question though this week, and I don't fully know yet. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Let's hopefully win game 3, right? And not have this the stress, right? It's just been nuts. But anyway, moving on. Just want to give a shout out to my guy, Abdil, who just said, can't wait to listen to your goated recap of tonight's games. Roast the Dodgers fans and they're sorry. Roast the Dodgers and they're sorry fans. Just appreciate you calling it a goated recap very much, sir. Then last question from at RSL fan 23. Did Profar getting that ball thrown at him help group us even more together as a team? As soon as that happened, they all grouped up, had their team meeting, hit 4 home runs afterwards. I think we could keep this momentum and the series in San Diego. I have to admit, I've been watching this sport for a long time. Momentum's a very tricky thing. You know what I mean? Because remember when the Phillies last year, I'm not trying to be a killjoy. The Phillies were killing everybody. They murdered the Braves, murdered their crying fan base. It was nuts. And then all of a sudden, the D-backs came to town and you're like, wait, what the heck? It's not over, guys. And I think that I will say it is true. Last night felt like they were just totally in their heads. As many home runs as they gave up, having to make them dip even further into their bullpen. It was nuts. Tatis shushing the crowd and doing that whole thing. Like, I do think it motivated them. I do. And sometimes you need this stuff. We talk about managers when they get tossed sometimes. Like, was that a tactic to help, get their players motivated? I mean, this situation, and again, I don't know full stuff. I don't want to assume that Profar was just a totally innocent angel. Although that catch, man, my guy was like antagonizing them for the catch. I don't know about in between innings or whatnot, but that was awesome, right? So, like, I don't know, but when you see Manny have an impromptu team meeting and them go out there and have multiple home runs like that, even from someone like Bogarts, who we're not necessarily always expecting, Tatis yeets one, and frankly, he should have walked around the bases after that, especially with, Jack Flaherty hitting him and then him being upset that the Padres were upset that he hit him. I think you have to say that it did help, right? You have to. There are things in sports, and especially baseball, that we cannot track with numbers. And I think this is one of those moments. And this offense, man, it's been showing up all year. It's been showing up in the series. Even the game they lost, it showed up. Right? Like Manny Machado had that home run. Xander Bogaerts had that double. He's had a good series. Bogaerts is doing what I was hoping for and what we previewed, which is, hey, he's got the World Series resume. Like, he's been here before, and that's good. So even if this guy, we have problems with him for what his future prospects for the team are, at least he's good right now. You know what I mean? At least he's lacing doubles, hitting home runs, and looking like a beast doing it. It gives you optimism. So hopefully this series goes really, really well. I will answer the rest of your guys' questions and comments that you sent on YouTube and whatnot over the last week. If you have any, please send more under this episode if you want them answered tomorrow. Again, so much to talk about, so much ridiculousness. I just, what a freaking series, man. And I just cannot wait for game 3. This series has lived up to it. This is absolutely a rivalry. There is literally no matchup in the sport that is more intense than Padres-Dodgers right now. And that is not biased. That is just true. These two teams hate each other, and we hate them, and the Dodger fans are whack, and y'all can miss me with that. Get out of here. Sit down, says Jack Flaherty. The Los Angeles Dodgers says sit down for a little bit. How about that? But with that all being said, everybody, that about does it for today's edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember to subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from, Stitchers, Spotify, whatever it is. I don't know why I'm naming it. Whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Again, send me questions in this YouTube video or DM me on Twitter at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, or at LO_Padres. So much to talk about. We're going to talk more. We might relitigate some of the topics on today's show tomorrow. That way we can get fully, like, even more into them. But send me all of your questions and I'll look more at the YouTube comments. But yeah, man, what a great time. Until that next time, though, when we talk about the games and we do more recaps, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful, my Friar Faithful homies. Take care.